Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Bacon. I'm a clinical psychologist in Santa Barbara, California, and this video is serving as a short introduction to a workshop that's coming up entitled Dancing with the Abyss. And for this introduction, I'm going to be sharing a short historical vignette about Anton Mesmer. And many of you probably heard of him. He's often called the father of hypnosis. Mesmer was a physician in the middle 18th century, and he had some healing clinics that he'd set up that were operating in Paris, France. The clinics were based on his theory of animal magnetism. Mesmer postulated that there was an energy flowing from in between all objects, and if he could somehow gather it, channel it into patients who had psychological or physical problems, these problems would improve. So he invited the patients to come to the clinics, and initially he would put magnets on their body to facilitate the channeling of animal magnetism. But later he found he could just put his hands near their bodies or even touch them and have the same effect. It's significant that he was also able to train other people to do this. So when Mesmer was channeling this animal magnetism, his patients would typically convulse, make noises, often faint, and when they recovered from the experience, they reported that their presenting problem was typically, improved or fully resolved. So for a lot of complex reasons that aren't important for this story, the King of France decided to appoint a commission to investigate Mesmer and his work. And the most famous person on that commission, for those of us from the United States, was Benjamin Franklin. And what the commission did is they set up a series of experiments to investigate the animal magnetism theory. For example, they took a patient, put him in a room, said that there was a practitioner of animal magnetism in the other room that was channeling magnetism into him. Upon saying that, after a brief pause, the person began to convulse, make noises, faint, and woke with the typical improvement of the symptom. It turned out, of course, that there was nobody in the next room channeling the magnetism, that this person had just elicited those behaviors simply by being told there was a person. In other words, the power of suggestion. They did some additional experiments concerning water because Mesmer would often magnetize water, then give it to a person to drink and have the same process of healing that I've already described. So they took some unmagnetized water, gave it to a person, told him it was magnetized. They went through the same healing thing. Conversely, they took magnetized water, just gave it to a person without any suggestion. They drank it, got none of the effects. And so as a result of this, they felt they debunked the animal magnetism theory and that all of Mesmer's results were simply due to the power of suggestion and Mesmer's charisma. Now I'm going to read you a title. When I was looking for this description of Mesmer, I came across a 3-page article written by the American Psychological Association, which is the single largest organization responsible for psychotherapy and scientific investigation into the psyche. So the title they put on this article about Mesmer is "The First Modern Psychological Study on How Benjamin Franklin Unmasked a Fraud and Demonstrated the Power of the Mind." Now, I think that's a very interesting title, and it describes how psychotherapy has evolved and continues to evolve to this day. Because what Mesmer had actually shown is that his method was getting quicker and more powerful effects than anything physicians of his day were doing. In fact, as far as we can tell, Mesmer's effects are still radically better than psychotherapists get in the modern day. So I feel like the title of the article should be uh, Mesmer, the first modern psychological experiment. Franklin shows that animal magnetism is not a good explanation. However, he fails to follow up on Mesmer's promising results. In other words, that decision to turn away from the power of the mind and the power of suggestion toward, quote, scientific explanations has been characterizing psychotherapy and psychology ever since. And even though psychotherapy, is only a little over 100 years old, you can see in the Mesmer story the foreshadowings of the evolution of psychotherapy. This particular workshop, that the Dancing with the Abyss, kind of takes up where the Mesmer investigation stopped. Both myself and literally hundreds and thousands of other practitioners, shamanic figures, and so forth have used the power of the mind and all that it implies to elicit various kinds of healing responses. It's a part of the evolution that is operated in the shadows, kind of drowned out by this overt commitment to science only. And the science only approach that psychotherapy embodies has very much limited the results that it gets. In the workshop that we're going to be exploring both the potentialities of Mesmer's work as well as a lot of similar people and how to integrate that work into your own practice. Thanks, and see you at the workshop.